Good morning. It's Monday, December 7th. 79 years ago, on December 7th, 1941, the United States was attacked by Japan, and we declared war the next day. And I want to play the famous speech that FDR made so that we recognize the kinds of leaders that we had in years past.
Senators and representatives, I have the distinguished honor of presenting the President of the United States.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation.
He wrote his own speech, and he edited his own speech. Now, that was the last great war that we had, until now. See, now I look at the pandemic as a great war. And right now, we have lost 280,000 lives in this war. And in my mind, the way things are going, we will lose more than we lost in World War II to COVID-19. And I was a child, 6 years old when that war started. And I remember the things that we did to help the war effort. We had ration stamps. My uncle had a car and he had stamps in order to get gasoline. You couldn't get gasoline just by driving up. And people saved their fat from their food in jars and delivered it to stations because we needed it for the war effort. And I remember in schools, when I was in, I guess, the second or third grade at that point, we collected newspapers for the war effort. And I was assigned to bundle those newspapers and get them over prepared so they could go to the processing plant, wherever that was. And I remember my uncle went in and was a tank driver, but they let him out because he was too old after 1 year. And I remember seeing the silver stars and the gold stars in the windows of families who had people that served and were injured or killed during the war. And I remember the patriotism that ran through this country at that time. And why am I talking about that? Just in honor of this day? No, it's more than the honor of this day. It's a reflection on the way people in this country think now. There was nobody that I knew of who wasn't prepared to give his all for the United States during World War II. Yes, there were people who objected to killing. They were conscientious objectors. But they went into service in areas where they didn't go to the front lines, perhaps, but they were medical corps or they were something else, but they were prepared to help us win the war. And you know what we were at that time? We were an isolationist country before the war. But after the war, we realized that we had to participate in what was going on in the world. So now I look at us in this place in 2020, torn apart by a virus. And we've become an isolationist nation again, and a divided nation internally. We've abandoned our allies on many fronts. We dropped out of the nuclear deal. I never liked that deal anyhow. But we left the climate accord. We left the World Health Organization. Now, maybe we disagreed with all of those organizations, but abandonment is not a policy that I can agree with. Stand up and try to correct the situation. Yes, you may feel that we have been abused, that countries have taken advantage of us. And I'm not so sure we didn't realize that all the time, but we were prepared to do that because it was, in the long run, the best result for everybody. And we have abandoned in this country the one for all and the all for one principles that we exhibited during World War II. Now, people who should be trying to save their neighbors and their friends and their family refuse to wear masks. We're not asking you to go to the battlefront and put your life on the line. All we're asking for is that you do something to protect yourself and your friends and your family. Is that so hard? Is it so hard for a couple more months to not socially gather with your face showing? And then we have a congressman from Florida who attends an event in New Jersey where everybody's crowded in a room and nobody's wearing a mask. And he's a representative of this nation and should be showing a better example. And he'll probably go back to work in Congress and probably spread the disease like crazy. And we will see a disease spread because everybody went for Thanksgiving and they had a good time. And so when you listen to Roosevelt's speech, you realize that as a nation we have to stand together. We have to sacrifice. When the men went off to war, the women went to the factories to work. That was unheard of, guys. Most women didn't work in those days. Now, there are women taking every kind of important job in this country. And that's the way it should be. And we shouldn't have rights when we're fighting a war against COVID-19. So I don't know how long it's going to take before we win this war. We have vaccines out, and they show promise. But by the time those vaccines take place and everybody is properly inoculated, and why do we have many who don't want to be vaccinated? The vaccination should be mandated, but we have many who have rights and they don't want to be vaccinated. And I don't know how we've become such a divided nation over the course of these 79 years or so. But I have a pretty good guess. But that's for another day. That's a topic for another day. So right now I'll just leave you with the memory of Roosevelt's speech, one of the great speeches in our lifetimes. And I will see you in the morning. Bye.